Hello, hello, my loves. Welcome back to the podcast this week. I am so delighted to get to introduce you to somebody that, as hopefully many of you will be connected to through this episode, Demetria Graves. She is somebody that I, a couple weeks ago, got to be on her podcast, Legally Uncensored. We came up with this beautiful two-part series. The first part that we recorded was over on her podcast. This second part is here on mine. So, a really exciting collab. I have been wanting to collaborate with a family law attorney for so long. I've had this podcast for 2 years now. This has been on my list. And when Demetria's producer reached out to me and I read about her, I was like, yes, yes, yes. All of the yeses to getting to meet her and work together with her. So thank you so much, Demetria, for being on with me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me and sharing your platform. You have been so welcoming, so warm, and I've learned a lot from you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, same. I am so excited for my listeners to go listen to part one. The conversation we had there was such a blast, and I'm very excited for them to get to dive deeper with you today. Before I take you down into the meat and potatoes of the episode, I would love to first get to introduce you more deeply and your background to my listeners, and then kind of get to ask you some personal questions. So, Demetria Graves is a certified family law specialist and opened her own family law practice, the Graves Law Firm, at the age of 25. Damn, girl. Just 6 months out of law school. She has offices in both Pasadena and Beverly Hills, California. Miss Graves is considered a leading Pasadena divorce attorney and has received many accolades for her dedication to the field of family law, as well as to the community. And then this part in your bio, I also wanted to include because I just loved this about you. During her tenure in each position, she has worked and continues to work diligently to ensure diversity in the legal profession and works with her colleagues across all organizations to provide informative programs for lawyers of color and women seeking judicial appointments. Practicing in family law and serving on several boards in California, she has become very aware of the necessity of well-rounded judges, and she is beyond dedicated to ensuring that we have bright, diverse, and knowledgeable judges in our community, which is more important now than ever. I know I made you sit through all of that, but I had to because I think that's so amazing what you're doing, not only in your work, like hell yes to 2 offices in Pasadena and Beverly Hills, but also your work in your community and supporting women and making sure that we have knowledgeable judges. I would love to ask you a little bit more about why you chose this work in family law, because at 25, you went out and started your own family law practice. So, how did you know? What drew you to this, Demetria?
I want to say first, thank you for making me sound so wonderful. Thank you. Um, what happened was when I graduated from law school, I got a job at a family law firm. I had no idea about the practice or if it was something that I actually wanted to do. And so I did it and I just kind of fell in love with it, right? What I learned really early on, though, there's a lot of attorneys in that area that don't care, that can profit from the emotion.
Mm.
So I learned really early on, wow, I can probably do something in this area if I actually cared and really learn the practice. So I was only at that firm for 6 months before I started on my own, but I knew that there was room there for attorneys that really cared and could really make a difference with families, could educate people, can give them a better experience during one of probably the hardest times of their lives. So that became kind of my mission to try to
Mm.
be a voice, sometimes a very stern voice, but a voice for anyone kind of navigating this space and informing people of better ways to do it rather than sitting back and just profiting from what was occurring for this family or any family.
You mentioned you falling in love with it. Tell me what you loved about it.
You see people when they first come to you, they are at their worst, right? They might
Mm.
be smart with you, they might cry a lot, whatever it is, you see the worst. But to kind of watch that transition from someone that their world fell apart to someone beginning to pick up the pieces and knowing that you had a small piece or sometimes a big piece to do with that, that is very rewarding. That I helped build the new castle or however you put that, right? So I started to do my little part in rebuilding something for the most part that's more positive for someone. And that really makes my heart smile.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this now?
Now you're gonna make me tell my age?
Not in a you are a badass, so you can just own that age, yes, I mean, come on.
Yeah, so my firm, believe it or not, just celebrated our 20th anniversary. And I don't believe it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, incredible, like, huge congratulations.
Thank you.
I It was not about the age, it was about celebrating having women like you in the world who, like you said, especially in this specific area of family law, it can go both ways
Right.
on which attorney you get. Are you getting someone who's really there to try and watch costs for you and walk you through this period of time, or someone who just wants to add fuel to the
Mhm.
flames of the situation that's already difficult? So 20 years of doing that for families, so happy for you. That's really
Well, thank
awesome.
you. Thank you.
Now, I just love meeting people who have podcasts. I think it is such an exciting thing to have. And you have your own podcast, the Legally Uncensored podcast, which all of your listeners, hello. So nice to meet you as well. Tell me about what inspired you to start that.
Well, I'm in California, right? And so the average cost of an attorney can be very, very expensive, right? We're talking most retainers are anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 to even just start.
Mhm.
And so I felt a lot of people may not have that resource to afford a full-time attorney. So it was important to provide as much knowledge as I possibly can to one, someone that's just not quite sure what the process looks like, and two, someone that's potentially navigating this process but don't have the financial resources to hire a full attorney. And I think a lot of times some people are a little delusional what the actual process looks like. So I thought it was important to explain as much as I could on a platform where people can listen, gain information, form their questions for an attorney or otherwise without having to pay the big price tag.
I love it. Yeah. Podcasts are amazing for being accessible and having a resource for people. Same thing with my coaching. The
Mhm.
podcast was like, I want to be able to offer resources to people who don't have the ability to maybe work with a coach one on one, but still need that work just as badly. So,
Right.
I love that both of our podcasts were a way to,
Mhm.
be there for that group of people as well. I know podcasts were a huge deal for me when I was considering divorce, just getting knowledge.
Mhm.
Now, you mentioned being delusional a little bit about the process with divorce, which we're going to talk about some in this episode. Just how much, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I do feel like the legal world is kind of set up this way. It is meant to be confusing. It's built into that system, I think, a little bit of not really knowing how it works, which is why I'm so excited to have you today on the episode speaking specifically to a pretty unique little niche that I wanted to talk about in the area of considering divorce and then going through a divorce, where women who are staying might be underestimating the price of their indecision. A lot of women come to divorce with a perspective of, I'm going to put this in air quotes, staying is safer. And I wanted you to specifically shine some light on maybe instances where staying can cost more than leaving. So, to start you off, I wanted you to share what you feel are some of the most common missed opportunities you see when women just stay in indecision.
I think the first thing is I'm saying women because that's what we're talking about, but
Yes, we're specifically on my podcast, I coach women considering divorce, but I guess with your listeners, you've got the whole spectrum, right?
right. But I'll still speak to women because that kinda is my passion as well. But I think what happens is a lot of times women don't get clear on, okay, if I stay, this is going to happen. If I leave, this is what happens. A lot of women think the court is going to pull out the violin and listen to the sob story and how wrong they're done. And in the state of California and most states now, we have no fault divorce. So the court respectfully does not really care of who
Mhm.
cheated, how long they cheated, um, how long he's been withholding money from you or she's been withholding money from you. Those considerations, although the court might not like it, they don't really play a big role in what is to happen. If you are a woman and you are the higher bread earner, if the longer you stay, the more you're probably gonna have to pay. So,
Mhm.
if your spouse hasn't been working and you've been the provider, the longer you stay, the more you're gonna pay spousal support. And just because you were the breadwinner and you took care of the kids, that doesn't necessarily mean that that person won't also have joint custody.
Yeah.
So, I think the biggest mistake is one, not getting clear first about how do I feel about this? What does this look like? What is actually there? What is important to me? Do we have a house? Do we have retirement accounts? Um, does this person have access to all of these things and what does that look like? And if you're
Mhm.
feeling a lot of anxiety about that or you're upset about that, I can tell you that is not the time to file for divorce. If it was up to me, everybody would need to do 5 to 10 sessions of therapy before they file for divorce because that is something you need to come in with a very level head because it's business, right? You don't want to play your attorney to deal with the emotions of this and then also handle the business because I'm going to tell you and 9 times out of 10 that's going to double or triple the financial experience in a divorce.
Yes, I definitely am gonna bring you back around to that later because that was something we were totally vibing about in part 1 of being on opposite sides of that, being in more of a coaching before somebody hires their attorney experience and you being the attorney getting them, just how important it is to have both of those pieces. So it sounds like one of the most important things you were saying is to get clear on what's actually going to happen from a non emotional space in the
Right.
facts. And I love that you made the point that the court, it doesn't care. And you said it like in a very respectful way. This was one of the biggest, one
Mhm.
of the biggest blind spots for me was that jump from having worked with a therapist up until that point and then retaining my attorney and feeling like she was so non-emotional, just down to business about it. I remember being like, "Well, I have all these audios saved," and she just did not care
At all. And
at
sometimes
all.
us attorneys are giving like, I'm that attorney as well. Like, I wanna handle the business for you. I don't want both of us to go down a rabbit hole of how terrible this person was or what they did, because that costs
Yes.
money. And so sometimes clients do get upset with us and, um say we don't care and that sort of thing, but we care about the business. You don't want us
Mhm.
to go down a rabbit hole with you, and then you get your bill and you're wondering what the heck happened. So that is why getting clear, getting emotional support outside of your attorney is so, so important.
Yes, I definitely post my divorce looking back was like, Thank God. Even though I didn't know how much I did not want her to follow those rabbit holes, because I didn't know they didn't mean anything, she knew, and she protected me by being like, "Stop, sit down, I know what I'm doing. That's not gonna play in the court isn't gonna care." One of the other things that I was thinking about that you brought up that kind of was a good little twist that I've noticed is I came from an environment where I was a stay-at-home mom, I was not the breadwinner. So I was not facing having to pay alimony to my husband, but more and more, this is what I'm seeing is women in the marriage who, like you said, are really taking care of the kids majority of the time and full-time breadwinners making more money. Have you seen that shift at all over the 20 years that you've
Oh, yeah, and women do not like to pay spousal support. Well, I can't say all women, but most women feel, "Why? You're the man, right? I shouldn't
Mhm.
have to pay you support. I've supported you for X amount of years. I don't wanna keep supporting you." I've had some of my women clients cry because they don't wanna pay support. But again, we're in this non-fault state, and
Yeah.
California is not gonna say, "You know what? You're right. You're a woman. I'm not gonna make you pay support." They're gonna look at who is the higher earner, and if there is support to be paid, that's gonna be the order. And then
Mhm.
to your point, and to women that have not worked, that have been supported by their spouse, it's important that you know what's going on. How much money
Mhm.
is he making? Is he contributing to a retirement account? Is there some type of bank account that he's putting extra money in? As much information that you can, know about, the better. There are still many women that come into my office and have no clue what's going on. They
Oh,
don't know
yeah.
how much husband makes. They don't know what's in the retirement accounts. They don't know how much debt there is. So the more informed you are, the better.
Yeah, so that was actually one of the things that I was thinking of as far as missed opportunities that I've seen for women who stay in indecision is they're not using that time to start gathering financial information or getting aware of what the lay of the land looks like. And I wanted to ask you about this. This wasn't the case in my divorce, but have you ever seen instances where a woman comes in, she doesn't know about the assets in the marriage, and then the spouse is able to like hide them, or it's more difficult to split? What's been your take on that, or what have you seen there?
Yes, it just makes it a little more challenging when we don't know, right? Because then we have to do more digging. We have to do what we call discovery. So we're sending out questions, we're sending out demands. But when you're dealing with someone that's been hiding money for years, or, trying to be sneaky for years, I'm sure they found a way to either put the money in a girlfriend's account or a mother's account or a brother's account. So it definitely becomes more challenging. And what I've seen is when people are prepared, meaning they gather as much as possible ahead of time, that person is not on guard like they will be once the process begins. So,
Yes.
yeah. So I always say, I'm not saying go break into offices and steal computers and do anything of that nature, but the more that you are informed, the better. But just in general, know what's going on in a marriage and otherwise. You have a right to know what the other party is making, where the money is going once the paychecks come in, what is being contributed to retirement accounts. Do we have credit card debt? Are you giving money to XYZ? That's something you can do right now to make sure that
Yes.
you are informed now before we even get into gathering information, before you call a divorce attorney.
I love you framing that and reminding women, like, you have a right to know. Because one of the things I was thinking of is this is, approaching it from I am economically protecting myself rather than fearing conflict, which is often what prevents a lot of women from moving forward, making steps that would ultimately protect them because they want to avoid conflict with their spouse. So I loved you just being like, girl, you have a right to know. The courts would say you have a right to half of
Well,
it.
the your spouse's income is community property while you're married. So half of that is yours. And a lot of people don't realize that your income during the marriage belongs to the both of you. So there's nothing wrong
Mhm.
with saying, "Hey, where's the money going? What bills are we paying?" What's going into savings? Where is that savings account? What are we putting into retirement? Oh, okay, where's that account? Those statements, some employers send them quarterly, yearly. You should know all of that information.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ever seen any real examples of damage that could have been avoided with earlier action?
Yes, I will go I'll go back to I had a client, again, she made a lot of money and she married someone that didn't, which was fine. However, she knew at maybe year 7, 8 that it was over, but she stayed, I think, to 15, 16. So in the state of
Oof.
California, when you're married over 10 years, there's no required end date to spousal support. Yeah, some couples can agree to terminate when they agree, but in this circumstance, it felt like he prolonged it to get the maximum benefit of her paying
Wow.
support rather than if she did it under 10 years, there would have been a termination date.
That is a big one.
That is a huge one. I've also seen where um, women have quit their jobs to raise their families, which sometimes makes sense because sometimes daycare makes no sense. And then don't have a plan, and the court can't order more than what our guidelines are. So, yes, you don't have income, but you're not gonna get more than whatever your state guideline is. So when you are leaving, the job market, think about that. So what how am I gonna protect myself? If he walks out tomorrow, what am I doing? Am I gonna keep taking classes so I am aware of what's going on in my field? Am I gonna volunteer 1 day a week? Am I gonna take off 6 months and go back? Those are the 2 situations that women tend to be impacted the most when they have quit their job or they are the higher earner and not paying attention to the guidelines and what happens if I'm married X amount of years, that sort of thing. Or if I'm out of my job too long and I can't get back into the job market, what does that look like?
Yeah. I am your second case. I am someone who did not have a career, and in the state of Texas, there is a cap on the amount
Mm,
of child support you're allowed to be paid, even with my ex-husband making a lot of money as an investment banker. Like you said, the courts don't care. They're not going to raise that cap. And then in Texas, alimony is not even a thing. Like my attorney was like, we are not going to win alimony. That's just not going to happen with
really?
where we're located.
Mhm.
Yes, she was very which I am surprised about because we were married for 12 years, but she just where we were located, she had a very like, "Nope, alimony's not gonna be a thing here for you." So, I know, now that you're, like, shocked by that, Demetria, I'm like,
I
I
am.
wish I would've wish I would have known Demetria at that time." Also, I had thought of a couple examples that I had seen with my clients. I'd seen where, the husband was making more money around the time she's considering divorce. Then they start working on the marriage. He ends up taking a job making less money. And then they continue staying married. And now, when they get divorced, she is going to be the one that will have a higher income than he will. But that was an instance where I was thinking of like, oh yeah, that's where, now you're not going to be getting child support. You might even be paying him child support. And then I also saw an instance where while the couple was going through the divorce, the husband went and spent like all of their 401k gambling, like 650K blown
Oh,
during the divorce. Yeah. And I just thought, wow, you really it definitely is a period of time. I mean, in that instance, right? There's nothing you can really do legally for that because it's now gone, right?
well, in the beginning, depending on what kind of retirement account it is, we have a process that's called joinder. So basically, a joinder is you tell the retirement account, "Hey, we're going through a divorce." So what that means is just freezes everything, no one can take any money out. So that's
Mhm.
something that should be done immediately. And then, unfortunately, we do have to be aware that the other party can strategize, right? They can say, "Oh, wow, I'm making 120 now. That's too much. I'm gonna go and kinda change my job so we're equal or I'm not gonna be exposed as much." So those are things you have to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
mindful of and paying attention to, so you kinda know how to make your next move.
Yeah, definitely. I'd be interested to know what you see as some of the most common reasons that women miss the cost of staying when they come to you.
Such a complicated question, right? So, as a lawyer, my lawyer answer is always it really depends. I think one thing women do that I don't think men do is they ask too many people about what their next steps should be and not the right people at times.
Mm,
Right? Just because your cousin or your aunt or someone did it, that's how they did it. I think it's important to know what the cost, good or bad, plus and minus. What does that look like for you individually? So, some people just assume that this happened for this party, so this is going to happen for me. I don't think women invest in a consultation with an attorney just to get information. So an attorney can say, here's your pros, here's your cons, here's how I would work on the cons until you decide to move forward. Or here are your pros, which sometimes might look better than what you originally anticipated. Sometimes women start negotiating with their partner before they even know what, the law is or what their
yes.
future even looks like. And so they make all these promises, and then by the time it's divorce and they've talked to an attorney, they've changed everything. So that sometimes creates conflict. Or just being fearful of the other party saying, "Well, if you do this, Imma do that," or "I'm gonna take the kids," or "I'm gonna spend the money," whatever it is. A lot of times there's fear in that, and sometimes it is real because sometimes people do act out what they say they're going to do. But I think my theme, I think, today is information. The more
Yeah.
information you have, the better. You don't have to proceed with an attorney because you have a consultation. You can just know, okay, wow, I thought I was going to get this amount of money, but actually I'm only going to get that amount of money. Wow, I thought I would have custody of the kids, but actually I'm probably going to have to share custody. So what does that look
Mhm,
like?
mhm.
How can I
Yeah, yeah.
prepare kids for that? Where are we going to move respectfully so the kids aren't compromised in this whole process? So, a lot of that is just preparation, information, knowing what things look like. Otherwise, if you blindly start this process and you don't know, okay, wow, there's no money coming in. How am I going to pay the bills? Are the kids going to continue to go to private school? Who's gonna get the dog? Whatever it is, then it becomes very, very costly.
Yeah. This comes to something I wanted to ask you about, which is, in part one, we talked about the importance of being emotionally ready to file for divorce. My take on it, where I kind of land, is that, like, especially with certain individuals, you are safer once you have an attorney in your corner because they know there's an external authority there that's going to be checking in on things. So I'd love to hear more about what you would say is kind of the sweet spot of, I know you gave a number earlier where you're like 5 to 6 therapy sessions
At
can
least.
do can do wonders for
Right.
keeping you from a 2 to 3 times bigger, attorney fee. But what are some other, if someone's thinking to themselves, "Okay, am I ready to speak to an attorney or not?" What would you say are some of the indicators of that sweet spot?
I think if you can have a conversation without breaking down crying or needing to explain your story to 3 or 4 people, that might be a start. But if you can't even tell the story without being extremely angry or breaking down crying, then it might not be the time. But I understand too, sometimes the process is initiated by the other party. So in
Yep,
that case, you're forced to kind of move a little faster. And I think you can
yeah,
still just talk to a professional such as yourself just to kind of get the comfort that comes with knowing, okay, this person has been through this. I'm not alone. I can do this. Sometimes that might be all that there is. And you might not have every single document you need. You might not know everything. But
yeah.
do you understand that the divorce process is a business transaction, that it's going to be a lot of business. It's not going to be, hey, I'm so sorry you went through this. Oh my God, he's so terrible. It's not going to be that. It's just not. And I know it's kind of a harsh reality,
Mhm.
but even going to court, right? Judges have anywhere, again, I'm in California, so they can have anywhere from 10 to 20 matters on calendar for one morning. So
Wow.
the more prepared you are, even if you feel those things, because how you feel is definitely accurate. But it's important to know that they're navigating a million cases just like your own, right? So the more you can get focused on the business, and if you feel you can actually navigate it, if that's 2 coaching sessions or if that's 15, if you feel that you're strong enough to kinda navigate what's to come, that's kinda your indication if you're ready or not.
The way I describe it to my women is like divorce is a hallway. So once you decide to file, it's like we've stepped into the hallway and it's time to go. We want to be moving strategically. We want to be focused on the end goal. We're not really here to keep spinning as much as now we're moving forward. Yeah, once you get into the divorce, it's like, let's move.
You know, I tell people having an attorney, people ask me all the time, "Do you think I need an attorney?" Well, attorneys to me are like translators, right? Because when you come on, you have no clue what the terminology
Mm.
is, what the process is, what it looks like, the judges, the other attorneys. So if you feel you can navigate that on top of everything else, maybe, but 9 times out of 10, don't add that additional stress if you don't have to. If you can find someone that you really trust to navigate this process for you, I think that's kind of where you want to be.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful to have introduced my listeners to you because when you can find an attorney like you that is passionate about your craft, is humane, ethical, not everybody out there is. That's why, one of the things I was thinking of is a lot of women don't end up doing this because they get so caught up in the bigger cultural ideas around attorneys, or a lot of the women I've talked to, they have their husbands saying it's going to cost so much more if we use an attorney.
Mhm.
But for me, in my instance, it absolutely, in my case, saved me money
Right.
because she knew the little, like you said, the little ins and outs. She knew about custody schedules and about having him be the one who's picking up and dropping off from my house, something I would never have thought about because I've never had a custody schedule before. I don't know what any of that is like. So
Right.
it truly is an incredible gift to give yourself if you can, to have somebody walk you through that process who knows the ins and outs and knows the terminology. And it's very awesome to get to have someone like you who not only understands the ins and outs, but also wants to, I love what you said at the very beginning, have this be like a springboard for someone into building the life that comes after this, right?
Absolutely. I think it's important to know, like your attorney, right? We're not going to embrace you and pet you and do all the things you might like. But the more direct your attorney is and the
Uh-huh.
more they're explaining the business to you, that is a good attorney.
I remember my attorney in our mediation, finally, at the very end, sat next to me with a computer, totaling up the numbers. And his attorney was not doing that. And because of that, we ended up with more than a 50-50 split because she was over there calculating how much money each of the assets was.
Mhm.
That's a sign of an attorney who was going to bat for me. And she was somebody who was like, "Girl, what you going to do for work?" She's like, "You have been a stay-at-home mom. What are you going to do?" I look back now, it's so lovely to have gotten to do this conversation with you, Demetria, because I can just look back on my past self with her and be like, "Oh, bless my attorney's heart." When you said the whole, if you're breaking down crying when you're talking to your attorney, it took me back and I was like, yes, the first appointment I had with my attorney, I broke down crying. So I was not nearly as prepped as I think a lot of, the women that coach with me that are in my community are around just knowing what's ahead. And I'm just so glad to have you as well because it's sometimes tough to find a referral for an attorney that you can trust. unless you know somebody that's already been through a divorce, that can be really difficult. So I'm very glad for all of my gals in your California area. I can now send them your way.
Yay! And again, I'm direct, okay? So don't be mad at me if I'm not, um, warm and fuzzy because that's not why you hire me.
I love it. I love it. Demetria, thank you so much for taking time with me today to get on and do the second half of our beautiful collab. Getting to talk today with you about those legal, financial, emotional costs when you stay in indecision. I am also super excited to announce that you are going to be doing a workshop in my Stay or Go community.
Awesome.
um, that's something that I'm always very excited to have guests on the podcast also get to come in to the community and interact with my women there. For your guests that may not know, I run an online community for women considering divorce, and we're going to be having Demetria come in later in a couple weeks to sit down with the women there and kind of round table where you're going to be sharing with them some of the legal moves you want them to be focusing on when they're in the process of still deciding, and then also fielding some of their questions. I would have just given anything to have had access to someone as amazing as you to just be like, Demetria, let me run this past you. In
I
fact, I may
mean,
tell them, I may be like, you guys can call her Miss Graves.
no, 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 no.
Miss
But
Graves.
I mean, I just feel so fortunate to connect with you. What you are doing is amazing, and women need that. A lot of women just didn't have that or don't have that. So it is so great that you are doing this, and I really appreciate you allowing me to be part of your community. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I feel such a kinship with you ever since reading your producer's email and then getting to research on you and then getting to do our episode together. I am very excited to know you now if I ever am out in California.
Hey,
Swing by.
well,
I want to see these offices in Beverly Hills. I want to have an office in Beverly Hills. That just sounds so cool. For the listeners that are looking for that community, I will have a link to that in the show notes. We will also share Demetria's social channels, her link to her podcast. Definitely go listen to part 1 of our beautiful collab. And I will look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you again, Demetria.
you. Thank you.